as we continue this journey of inward heart and mind reconciliation. We want to value to a higher degree intuition. This is something that becomes apparent on the journey. We'll discuss how so in this video. And before we do that, let's reflect upon a quote here from the book The Inner Consciousness by William Walker Atkinson, a course of lessons on the inner planes of the mind, intuition, instinct, automatic mentation, and other wonderful phases of mental phenomena. He says, in the region of the higher planes of the inner consciousness are to be found that wonderful aspect or phase of mind which we call intuition, which Webster defines as direct apprehension or cognition, immediate knowledge, as in perception or consciousness, involving no reasoning process. It is a higher form of that which we know as instinct, the difference being chiefly that instinct belongs to the phenomena of the below conscious planes and has to do chiefly with that which concerns the physical body and well-being, while intuition belongs to the above conscious planes and has to do with the higher part of the nature of the individual. Instinct sends messages up to the intellect, while intuition sends its messages down to the intellect. So this is fascinating. We've got instinct, intellect, intuition. He says many of the highest forms of pleasurable things come from the region of intuition. Art, music, poetry, the love of the beautiful and good. The higher forms of love, intuitive perception of truth, all these come from above, from the region of intuition. Genius also comes from that enchanted region. All great writers, poets, painters, musicians, actors, and artists of all kinds and models of expression have received their inspiration from these higher regions of the mind. All great artists working through the various mediums of expressions noted above have felt that their best work was rather the result of the labor of some higher power rather than their own everyday self. Which is why I very much enjoy the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. See, anytime I had a goal or a vision in which I committed to, in which I recognized upon connecting the dots looking backwards that the ways, the hows, the answers were found on the journey. Now this brings an enormous amount of inner peace. Let's look back at our own lives. We might not have known how we have gotten to many destinations, goals, visions realized. Maybe we knew some of the ways, and having many conversations with others, for the most part, they did not know the way they were going to get to the destination, committed to the fact of the vision in their imagination. Now, we spoke last week about the heart and mind relationship as a result of discussing Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'll put a link in the description, in which he speaks about the walking meditation. Now, this is where we will find a deep relationship with our intuition. On the day-to-day activities, on whatever it is that we're doing, we have an opportunity to relate with our intuition, listen, have a conversation with, dialogue, in whatever shape or form. I do it through inner conversation, with intuition to find the true and accurate answer in relation to the questions that we have about different aspects of the journey. Questions in regards to people, environment, circumstances, information. We can find all these answers within, as articulated here in Psycho-Cybernetics. From this quote, he says, the answer exists now in much the same way when we set out to find a new idea or the answer to a problem. We must assume that the answer exists already somewhere and set out to find it. So he's got a 5-step process that I like to reflect upon because this is symbolic on different journeys, as in a person has a different goal, a different vision, a different definite chief aim than another person, although they will find that they go through the same kind of journey, which we'll find relatability to the spiritual alchemy process. I'll put a link in the description to a number of videos in which we discuss the process. So this is the process that he outlines of transforming the self-image, or we could say becoming who we truly are. As we recognize throughout our conversations that personal development, this kind of information, is designed to allow us to find within ourselves what we truly love, what we truly desire, how we want to live, how we want to relate to others, what do we want to do as far as career, professions, creative expressions in art, music, poetry. And if we go back here, in which he states, many of the highest form of pleasurable things come from the region of intuition, art, music, poetry. The higher forms of love, intuitive perception of the truth, all these come from above, from the region of intuition. And I recognize that there's many ways a person can relate, form a deeper connection, think feelingly, which is harmonious with intuition. And this is found on the journey to realizing the vision as well. So, as he says here, your built-in success mechanism calibrates to a goal or vision. The vision is conceived of as already in existence now, either in actual or potential form. I like to see it as fact in my imagination. That's the way it is. As I see it that way, I recognize that it harmonizes in relationship with the subconscious mind. And the goal throughout this process, as we'll go through it, is to allow the subconscious mind to express. Body is an expression of mind. It's a representation of mind. People, environment, circumstance, information shows up in harmony and contribution to our vision some way, somehow. And this is experienced viscerally by maintaining the heart and mind relationship, the walking meditation. Number 2, the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, operates or is oriented to the vision. So when a person has a vision, they trust that some way, somehow, they are going to get to that vision. Automatically so, some way, somehow. They may do this or that or discover some process or way of doing things on the journey. All those things are part of the journey to realizing the vision. Upon commitment to the vision, we allow these things to show up. Otherwise, a person might express all kinds of convoluted behaviors, which are a result of certain thinking patterns that are not accurate and true to how they really are, or emotional patterns that are not accurate and true to how they actually are. The emotions reveal, the thinking patterns reveal, the behaviors reveal. No need to shame ourselves. No need to get involved with perfectionism. Here's what he says. The automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, operates or is oriented to the vision. It is the function of the automatic mechanism to supply the means whereby when you supply the goal. Think in terms of the end result, and the means whereby will often take care of themselves. You'll receive it. Hunches, inspiration, ideas. A person starts a project. They commit to it. They roll out the project. Maybe it doesn't go how they thought it would go as far as the journey goes. Maybe they had some biases of how it was going to play out. And it didn't play out in a way that they thought as a result of overthinking or whatever the reason may be. They have opportunity right then and there to reestablish the heart and mind relationship. And I'll echo what Joe Dispenza said here. He says, you begin by standing still, closing your eyes, and resting your attention in your heart. All the while slowing down your breath and breathing in and out of this center. When you feel your heart centered, just as you do in your seated meditations, you begin cultivating elevated emotions that connect you to your future. Now, you can do this in many shapes and forms. You can go for a walk and do this. You can stand still and do this in the moment. I notice myself doing this real time in conversations with people, real time in the projects. I also give myself the opportunity to step away from the interaction or the project, go for a walk, or perform a meditation to bring myself back into this heart and mind relationship, to allow the automatic mechanism, which is teleological, to operate intuition. I receive hunches, inspiration, ideas right then and there, or it could show up in ways that I might not know. For example, sometimes in the shower, when I'm at the gym, when I'm having conversations with friends, when I'm snowboarding, when I'm having some fun, when I'm going for some walks. And all of a sudden, this idea, when integrated into the project, modifies the aspects of the project and brings it to the destination. We end up achieving that business success in whatever shape or form it's defined as the vision. Number 3, he says, do not be afraid of making mistakes or temporary failures. See, one of the things we want to do is make peace with this idea that mistakes or temporary failures, as a person might label them, is a problem. He says, servo mechanisms achieve a goal via feedback and immediately correct course. Perhaps some thinking patterns, or perhaps some instinctual responses seems to reflect in some kind of reactivity and so forth. That's okay. Intuition within, via the heart and mind relationship, reveals the way, the true and accurate thinking patterns in relation to the experience within, which allows us to then identify with those thoughts, thinking patterns that are true in harmony, those ideas that are resonant with how it actually is and aligned with those. And so to further release this heaviness, if a person has it, in regards to perfectionism-based overthinking, in regards to mistakes or temporary failures, let's look at number 4 here. He says, learning embraces trial and error, mentally correcting aim after an error, until a successful motion, movement, or performance has been achieved. After that, further learning and continued success are accomplished by forgetting past errors and remembering the successful principle so that it can be imitated. And this is why I always suggest picking a goal, vision, having a number of goals or visions, however it works for you, staying committed to them till you realize these goals and visions. As I find what is equally important is the realization of the goal and also the journey of purification of mind that occurs on the pathway to realizing the goal, which is a result of letting go of thinking patterns, emotional patterns, behavioral patterns that are not true and accurate to how you are, which are revealed on the journey. Again, I recommend working with The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy to identify these thinking, emotional, behavioral patterns, which can subconsciously play out as recurring patterns. Make peace with them by forming true and accurate self-image-based beliefs, which a lot of times happens automatically on the journey of committing to a goal and seeing it all the way to completion, which can further be encouraged by working with The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, thus allowing a person to embrace trial and error if they show up and remain in that lighthearted commitment, heart and mind relationship to the destination, further revealing the intuition. Now let's go back to this quote here as we have further dimensionalized it by reflecting upon what we've discussed so far in regards to this process from psycho-cybernetics. He says, in the region of the higher planes of the inner consciousness are to be found that wonderful aspect or phase of mind, which we call intuition. He says, all great writers, poets, painters, musicians, actors, and artists of all kinds, entrepreneurs, day-to-day life, and modes of expression have received their inspiration from these higher regions of the mind. All great artists working through the various mediums of expression noted above have felt that their best work was rather the result of the labor of some higher power rather than of their own everyday self. They allow themselves in the moment to receive within inspiration. If a person thinks that everything that they are is this five-sensory experience and interpretations in regards to this five-sensory experience, then they have not recognized the power of the sixth sense, as I had been first introduced to it in Think and Grow Rich. He had a chapter dedicated to it, and it started a journey of further understandings and revelations of some of the aspects, because I believe it's infinite. Some of the things that I've come to realize and work with in regards to our conversations also with William Walker Atkinson's work in regards to personal magnetism, as well as your invisible powers, thought forms, subtle energies, as we discussed in the Genevieve Beran video. I'll put a link in the description to it, your invisible power. So the key here is allowing. As we'll look at this number 5 here, he says, trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work or not, or by attempting to force it by too much conscious effort. As we discussed recently as well, harmonious relationship between the conscious and the subconscious allows for thinking feelingly. The harmonious relationship also we can look at as physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or we can call this congruence, being in congruence. And this is felt viscerally. You feel it. A person who's aligned will notice that body moves as an expression, and emotionally, the connection and relationship. And it's not to say one emotion is better than another. Many artists, poets, entrepreneurs have worked with a full range of emotions to bring forth innovation, artistic expression. The answer is it depends, and it's found within via the inward relationship with intuition. And so he says, trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it up by becoming too concerned, too anxious. We can say that this is usually a result of a person not accepting themselves, recognizing that they can find the answers within themselves, recognizing that they are one with the infinite world within, which is the source of all of this that we see in this five sensory experience. And perhaps they have not recognized that they are suggesting to themselves in regards to any information what that information means to them. And what we've been discussing and proposing all throughout this conversation is to think for yourself, feel for yourself, and to think and feel accurately from within. And thus we experience what he says here. We let it work rather than make it work. A lot of times the overly forced, trying too hard behavioral and emotional or thinking patterns are a result of certain beliefs, thinking patterns, ways of looking at reality and ourselves that we have identified with for whatever the reason may be. And through the opportunity that we have by having a goal, a vision, or definite chief aim, committing to it, encouraging it further by what's being outlined here. We allow ourselves to be authentically how we are on the journey because we have embodied to a higher degree that which we truly are. As also articulated by Joe Dispenza, he says, because you are walking as your future self, you have now become aware of the way your current self has always unconsciously walked. So then we get clear distinction as to who we are and what thinking patterns, emotional patterns, behavioral patterns that we have been, for whatever the reason, unconsciously been identifying with, which has created unnecessary complexity and convoluted behaviors, thinking patterns, emotional patterns, etc., which we can then make peace with by working with the power of the subconscious mind. Again, watch the almost 2-hour video that I did, which I found to be one of the most powerful introductions to working with, relationship with the subconscious mind, which to me, I was introduced to the subconscious mind, again, through Think and Grow Rich. He had a chapter of the subconscious mind, which then through the incidents, I was brought forth deeper understandings through Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, and then Psycho-Cybernetics. And then we got the Kabbalion that showed up, which was also said to have been written by William Walker Atkinson. All these interesting works show up step by step to reveal a higher degree of understanding of the power of intuition. Again, let's echo back this quote here. He says, in the region of the higher planes of the inner consciousness are to be found that wonderful aspect of phase of mind which we call intuition, which Webster defines as direct apprehension or cognition, immediate knowledge as in perception or consciousness involving no reasoning process. It is a higher form of that which we know as instinct, the difference being chiefly that instinct belongs to the phenomena of the below conscious planes and has to do chiefly with that which concerns the physical body and well-being, while intuition belongs to the above conscious planes and has to do with the higher part of the nature of the individual. Instinct sends message up to the intellect, while intuition sends message down to the intellect. Some refer to this as receiving downloads. Many of the highest form of pleasurable things come from the region of intuition. Genius also comes from that higher enchanted region. All great writers, poets, painters, musicians, actors, and artists of all kinds, and all modes of expression, which have received their inspiration from these higher regions of the mind. All great artists, working through the various mediums of expression noted above, have felt that their best work was rather the result of the labor of some higher power rather than of their own everyday self, which we can say thinking patterns, behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, which is not true in harmony with our higher self, and through the process of picking a goal and vision and staying committed and valuing the journey and seeing the journey as valuable as the destination, we become that which we destine ourselves to be. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I recognize the genius within myself expressed creatively in all forms. in my social interactions, in my career, my financial, my spiritual, physical, intellectual, family pursuits. Ideas, inspiration is found within via the heart and mind relationship, found with a harmonious relationship between thinking and feeling from the perspective of the vision realized. I recognize that the answer exists now, and I'm one with the infinite world within via intuition, which I allow the answers to be received within, allowing me to see seeming mistakes or seeming temporary failures as how they truly are, and accurately recognize as in harmony and in contribution to the vision, clearly and vividly by intuition. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.